are callings truly given by God? I mean, like, is every bishop, elders quorum president, and relief society president like hand chosen by the Lord? Let's get controversial. No.
Yeah, I'm
no.
gonna say I don't think so either. Hey guys, welcome back to Saints Unscripted. You're here today with Sabrina and
Brett
and David.
And we're going to be answering some questions that you guys submitted to us that you need advice on.
You get what you pay for, and this video is free.
So yeah, let's just start. I'll just read
Dive
one.
right in.
I'll just read one and we see what advice we got. Okay. Okay, this person said, how do I be more open with people about my religion, but not be pushy? And another person said something about sharing their testimony online without tiptoeing around people's feelings. I think that kind of goes together.
I wanted to say that that's part of the reason I liked being on this show. Because it's hard. It's difficult to express your feelings about religion and the gospel of Jesus Christ because they're super personal. I just want to say, like, for when I get it, it's hard and it's difficult. And something I like being about the show is it becomes more natural as I do it.
What about people who aren't on a YouTube channel, Brett? What advice do you have for them?
We need to air out some animosity here. Is anyone else going to contribute, or should I just finish off this question?
I have a thought here. I think that it's easier to share your beliefs when you are not so worried about like being right all the time about your beliefs. Mm-hmm. Like, of course, you believe that they're true and you want to be right, but if your focus is solely on like being correct about everything, then it's a lot scarier when people maybe ask you questions that you don't know the answer to, or, you know, offer some pushback on what you're saying. But if your focus is instead on just like loving people and being genuine, I think that then sharing your beliefs becomes a lot easier. So that's my 2 cents on that.
I think people feel sincerity and humility. Like when you share something, like you're saying, be willing to admit you might be wrong.
Yeah.
And people feel sincerity of your message, even if they don't agree with it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think it also comes to the root of why we share what we believe. And I think for me, it's like you want to share what makes you happy, what gives you purpose, and you don't want to share it because you think other people suck, you know, like that's not the purpose. Yeah. So if you go with the reason that you like, I believe this and it has brought me a lot of purpose, then I think that will help you share it in a better way.
Talking about how it has blessed your life as opposed to like implying like, hey, you're doing something wrong.
Yeah, I think that'd be being pushy. Yeah.
Good advice.
Okay. Putting people in their place.
What?
Mainly in the church. Trying to unpack what this means. And I'm also going to try to like be serious about it. I don't know if I can do that. Putting people in their place. I think they mean maybe standing up to people where they feel like they're incorrect, or like they feel like someone's behavior needs to be changed. But if you have like disagreements or opinion differences in the church, I think it's like any other relationship. You can disagree without like inciting anger. Like being a peacemaker doesn't mean avoiding conflict or contention, but it means not intentionally inflaming it.
I feel like going into a conversation with the intent of putting someone in their place.
If that's the phrase going through your head, it might not end well.
Yeah, like I wonder if that is the right approach. And that's passively saying that's probably not the right approach.
Because I've sat down here a few times with David thinking like, how am I going to put him in his place?
And it never ends well for you, right?
And I always get roasted. No.
But I think that like you got to be careful with that, because like, is it your place to be putting people in their place?
And do you know their place?
We should post that one on Instagram. I want a front panel of that quote.
But like, if you are in a situation where you need to like talk to somebody about something that's going on, I think that in the Doctrine and Covenants, where it talks about reproving betimes with sharpness and then afterwards showing forth an increased measure of love towards them is probably good advice.
That's really good.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Someone was looking for advice on teaching the youth without focusing on behavior /perfection /shame. And I think that's a really good question. And my response would be to take some cues or pointers from the church's new Strength for Youth pamphlet. it used to be back in my day, a pretty like it was a list of a lot of behaviors that you were, told to avoid, which I still agree with. But now it is about principles. Like it teaches you a principle and then lets you kind of make your own choices about how to apply that principle in your life. And I think that when we're teaching the youth, I think that's a really good example. Teach principles and let them figure out the best way to apply them in their own life.
I think that's doing wonderful.
I think that also teaching them principles and then helping them recognize blessings when they do things that are, in line with their beliefs.
That's really good. The blessings that come from the behaviors.
Yeah.
And I would just add the higher law and principles and how these things can help you get closer to God. That's a really good way to teach. I would also say sometimes it's not terrible to bring up the law of Moses. Like if you're a parent, like, no, like don't do that. Like keep your clothes on. Instead of like the blessings of chastity, you can be like, just don't do it. But you should also teach them the principle. But you can also just sometimes tell people this is bad, but also teach them why.
And teach them about repentance, I think.
Do you have something to say, David?
No, I mostly agree with that. No, that's good. I'm just thinking there are scenarios where
David, you have young kids. You know what I'm talking about.
I do. Like if your kid is about to like jump in a fire when you're camping, you don't want to be like, let me teach you this principle about danger.
Too late. They're in it.
Yeah, like you just got to be like, don't you dare do that or you are going to get really hurt. So I get that. I agree with that. I think that you have to pick and choose your battles.
Correct.
All right. Here's one that's not as serious, I would say, but says how to help those with food allergies feel like they belong. And you would think at first reading that, maybe it doesn't have to do with like the church, but my mother has a severe gluten allergy. At ward events where there's food, a lot of times she can't eat anything, right? My mom is so used to going to events where she can't eat anything. Like she's not going to be offended that there's nothing there. But I do think that she's even developed like friendships with specific people who'll be like, hey, I made you gluten-free cinnamon rolls. They're on this table over here. And so I would say if you have the ability to be that person, be that person.
I agree. You want to be really thoughtful.
Yeah.
It's not their fault that they have, a gluten allergy or whatever. And they already feel like they have to be a burden or a pain to say, oh, sorry, I can't eat this. Or like at social events, like, I can't eat there. We got to. So I think that not putting them in an awkward position and just like taking care of it for them goes a long way.
And do you guys in your wards, do you have with the sacrament, like a little, like on each tray thing that's a non-bread option? Do you have that in your wards?
I've seen that in quite a few of my wards. I don't know if my current one does it though.
We've had it in the past. I think we might have just switched over to just gluten-free bread.
Oh, yeah, that's
overall.
good too. Yeah.
I'm not sure though.
Yeah, because growing up, they would bring my mom like hers first. But now, like in the ward I'm in now, here in Utah, every single tray has a little thing with like little rice crackers. So
yeah,
that's cool.
You can do that too.
Rice checks, something like that.
Yeah.
Dating. How can you tell a guy on the third date if you can see a future together? Like, how do you communicate that to him? Not how you actually know. That's interesting.
At what number date do you guys feel like a future was communicated with your spouses?
Oh, wow, there's a lot coming at me right now. All right, let me answer a question I want to answer. That's how you do things. A, how can you know? Which wasn't the question, but I like to talk. I think a lot of times in dating, the Lord doesn't like tell you to date people or stop dating people. I think he'll tell you like, this is a good situation, keep pursuing it. But I think rarely is he like, you should pursue this because this is the person you're meant to marry, even if that's the person you're meant to marry. Like the Lord loves your agency, so.
And the other person's agency.
Yeah.
If you were told that by the Spirit, then you would think that you could tell them that, and they didn't have that revelation. So
that's a really good point.
Yeah.
Your runways. And how can you tell this person on the third date? I've got nothing interesting to say. Just be open about communication. Yeah.
I think that it's okay if you want to mention that you could see a future with someone on the third date, unless the vibes are not vibing. You don't need to say like, I want to marry you and I know that right now, but you can say like, hey, I really enjoy being with you. I could see being with you longer.
I think you should be extremely cryptic and just only provide very subtle hints, because guys are really good at picking up on that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
No.
Short responses and just like emojis that don't necessarily,
You guys stop.
that aren't relevant to the situation.
Yeah.
I feed off
Don't
that
be
energy.
passive.
Okay, here's a good one. Someone looking for advice about how to keep faith through trials or amidst trials. And I think this is super important, and I wish that I understood this earlier in life, but my one-liner for you would be to remember that faith does not exempt you from trials. That was never the purpose, never been the purpose of faith. Faith is meant to help you get through trials when they come. That's
Amen.
my
I
like
that's
that.
my
I think
little
that's great.
Nothing else needs to be said for me.
I think I've learned recently that looking for the hand of God makes it easier to see and recognize in your life. The Lord is blessing you in your trials, and he is especially with you when you're going through something difficult. You just have to look. And as you find the Lord's hand in your life, you'll feel his love, and that can really help carry you through hard times.
love it.
Someone just said sex life.
There's a lot to unpack there.
My first thought is when you're married, I would just recommend a book called Replenish by Tammy Hill. Anyone else have anything?
Me and David talk about this a lot.
No, we don't. Actually,
We text.
never. No, we don't do that either. I think that's great advice, though. I'd
Sorry,
look
Yeah.
for
I wanna
some
bring it back.
some
This is a serious
literature.
subject. I think a lot of people don't realize it's just like another component and very important and sensitive component of your relationship. And this is obvious, it's going to sound rote, but you need to talk about it and work on it just like any other part of your relationship. And it's not important like what is normal, what is average, what is expected. You just need to come to a place like in every other dynamic of your relationship where the two of you are happy and content. That may require a compromise, that may require like uncomfortable discussions, just like with any other part of a serious relationship. And it's super important to view it through that lens and not that it should just work magically or it should just be perfect or fine. It needs to be treated like division of responsibilities in the household. It needs to be treated like everything else, something that you talk about, discuss.
Yeah.
Cool.
Awesome.
Okay, final one. Okay, this is an election year, and I'm wondering if I should be voting for Donald Trump, Joe Biden, or a third party
Why was
candidate.
why was I believing that for so long?
So I'm actually a write-in candidate this year in Utah, Brett Fotheringham. That's not one. Just love everybody. Be open to listening to other people's opinions.
Don't, I mean, if we're talking
maybe even
about
your
that,
uncle at the family reunion, give him like 2 minutes and then you can cut him off.
but
Listen for 2 minutes.
But if you're even bringing up that fake submission there, I still think it's important
Oh,
for
Sabrina, go for it.
people to be not politically ignorant. So
Yeah, the church has encouraged being like involved in civic matters
Yeah.
for a very long time.
All right, this one's really important. Are callings truly given by God? I mean, like, is every bishop, elders quorum president, and relief society president like hand chosen by the Lord? Let's get controversial. No.
yeah, I'm
Hard no.
gonna say I don't think so either.
I also would say no to that, but just for the simple reason that humans are involved, like at every step of the process. Like as much as someone tries to seek revelation, maybe they get it wrong sometimes. Like we're all subject to error. I am very hesitant in almost every scenario to make statements involving the words every or none or extremes like that because they're seldom true.
I'm just kidding. No, you're very true because, yeah.
I think that we should give our leaders the benefit of the doubt and seek personal revelation to, confirm what they are, who they're calling if we need to do that. But I wouldn't go so far as to say that every single calling ever made was, directly inspired by God because we're humans.
And I would say when they announce the callings in sacrament meeting, I don't think that they would give you the option to be opposed if it was like so clearly and obviously and confidently from God, I think.
It's an interesting thought.
Yeah.
I would just finish by reiterating what you guys are saying. The Lord has given us agency, and he does direct his church, But I can't think of many cases where he directs every decision of someone in any category, really. He loves our agency. It's our most precious gift. And that process is involved in calling people. And the Lord, I think, helps oftentimes. I don't know if it's every time or just sometimes, but like you're saying, there is agency and so mistakes will be made.
And I also think that there's more than one right answer a lot of the time. Like if we go to the Lord with someone, the name of someone we'd like to call to a certain calling.
Yeah.
You know, maybe there are 7 great options in the ward that you're in that could, you know, also do that calling well. Like, I don't think it just has to be one person all the time.
Mm-hmm.
So this person is looking for some advice on how to handle ex-Mormon content.
You put them in your place.
On social media.
I think we learned earlier.
Put them in their place. No, I think that's a really good question. And honestly, the answer might be different for different people. For me personally, I'm at a point where I am honestly pretty liberal in just blocking people and just pushing the 3 little dots and not interested in this kind of content. And I know that for some people that's going to be like, censorship, you shouldn't be shutting people down and stuff like that. But like, and I'm speaking from the position of I have, you know, a public Instagram account where I post stuff about the church, and I get a lot of comments like these from people who've left the church or just aren't big fans of the church. And if they are bringing up sincere questions or respectfully disagreeing with something, like that's totally fine. But if they're just coming in to stir the pot or throw out accusations, or just like a lot of the time they'll just like list like 15 different issues they have with the church or whatever. I am personally pretty liberal at just blocking people, because I look at like social media, like my account, for instance, like this is my house, right? And if you come into my house and you're getting in my face and, you know, yelling stuff at me and whatnot, like I'm going to show you the door. You are perfectly welcome to come in and disagree with me. That's totally fine. Let's have an amicable discussion.
But if David doesn't like how the discussion goes at his house, you might be shown the door.
If you are not showing the respect that I expect in my home, then it's, you know, I'm not.
That's totally valid.
I'm not going to.
That's a good way to justify your position.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And there will be people who disagree, and that's fine. Just do it respectfully. I'm gonna block you.
Or you will never see this channel on your feed again.
That would be my advice there.
Very good.
Yeah.
I don't think there's any shame in just like curating the content to what you're comfortable with, what you want to see. I'm not saying don't challenge yourself ever, but that's just my take on it.
Social media is the name of the game now, but it's so much easier. It's still hard to have these conversations in person because there's a level of like emotional connect, empathy, understanding that does not translate over the webs.
There's just a limited amount of time in the day, and I have only so much time that I'm willing to dedicate to those few who are, you know, just being the rabble.
That's a great way to say like the energy and the time. Yeah, it's hard to like dedicate.
Yeah,
part of that.
And I guess the point that I'm trying to make is that it's not so much about the idea or the topic. It's more so about how people go about it, how people approach you with that topic. Like we could have 2 people that come up to me and disagree about the prophetic calling of Joseph Smith, and I could have a great productive conversation with one of them and still disagree afterwards, and I wouldn't block that person. But I can also have one where there's a wall between us and someone's just launching insults about Joseph Smith and accusations and whatnot, and that's just not productive. It's just not worth our time, I don't think.
Does it create understanding between the 2 of you, or does it just create animosity between the 2 of you?
Yeah. Good question.
I think it separates them. Yeah.
Anyway, these are all great. Hopefully we said something that helped somebody out there. But thank you for submitting your advice.
Yeah, and I hope some of it was helpful. Again, this was free.
And while you're here,
thank you for your questions.
We've done several other episodes where we respond to comments and similar things to what we did in this episode. So while you're here, go watch one of those episodes and have a great day.